Welcome back to AI Advantage, where we discuss kind of the skills that you need to thrive in the intelligence age. And we're applying everything that we're learning to ourselves. So this is really us learning in public, a saying that we like to have, and really using these skills in our own life to kind of put us in the best place to adapt to whatever future we have that involves AI.
Yeah, it really started with for me, it was started with my own journey, feeling like I didn't know how to future-proof my career, how to develop a skill that would be relevant in a world where we are asking AI to do more of our tasks for us, or it's becoming more enabled. And there's the what it is now, today, and the how it's talked about as to the predictions of having agents who will work on your behalf, to being part of teams that include AI agents, as well as relying on software. I think the biggest thing for me has been to look back a year and to go, what was I asking AI to do for me a year ago? It's, my habits are different, my skills are different, but what it can do is different too.
I like that. Today's topic is around resilience, well-being, and being a lifelong learner. And we feel like these three topics are kind of interconnected and impact us all differently. And so we wanted to take a stab at what they look like for us, and perhaps you have feedback and can share what they look like for you. But how do we build the habits and mindsets that allow us to adapt and thrive in the age of AI? And I think adaptability is one of those key things. And for me, it's been an interesting year, and I'm going to tell you a bit about how my year's gone, but I'm interested in, we're at the year end of 2025. Where are you at the end of this year? How do we stay relevant as we move into 2026? Particularly, how do our skills that we sell in market, whether you're working for somebody or working for your own business, how are they relevant as we go into 2026? Do the skills that served you well in 2024 and 2025, are they going to be the skills that work for you in 2026?
My word of the year has been practice. I keep coming back to that because when I think about the different skills and, the big ones we've touched on include communication, critical thinking, your data literacy, your technical depth. Those skills for me are not just a one-off. I'm going to do a training, I'm going to read a book, I'm going to just do a one-time event and then be able to say I'm skilled in that area. Every single one of them requires practice. And I need the mindset of practice to also take my tendency to try and get to perfection. That perfectionism that has driven me to try and be, get the A my whole life. I need this mindset of practice to go, actually, you're supposed to get it wrong. And a practice is where we can test things and learn things. And it also speaks to a regularity. If you think about a yoga practice, someone who has a yoga practice, they're doing yoga a couple of times a week. And so that's what I've tried to hold in my mind and strive for in my learning this year is practice, not a particular attainment.
Interesting. I find that the word resilience has come up many times this year in various formats, whether it's content I'm looking at on YouTube or sessions that I've attended, and this ability as a human to become resilient, to be able to bounce back when life fires changes at us. And I'm as I reflect on my year, I've had a more difficult year than what I have probably had in the previous year. January started with a good friend of mine came and visited me, and 2 weeks later he died. And that set off the course of events. The following month, my father died. And then I also found that I was in a job that was really focused on somebody else's vision and definition of success than my own. And it shook my confidence. And so it's been quite a difficult year for me across the board. And I come back to this concept of resilience and going, how do you bounce back after hard times, after hard things happen? And for me, I've had to go back to kind of what worked in the past for me. How was I operating in the past that enabled me to have a positive outlook on life? And so where I'm a person that wants to consume new and always be learning something new, in the next 4 weeks, I've decided to go back to stuff that I have read, particularly. Reading is one of the ways that I learn a lot. And so I've gone back, I've queued up 5 books that I have read in the past, right back, 10 plus years ago. One book well over 25 years ago. And I'm going back to reset my mind because I feel like it needs to be reset, in that I've started to look at life perhaps not as positively as what I used to. And so therefore I'm resetting my mind and really getting back and building. I suppose I'm in a phase at the moment of building resilience in the age of AI that is really going to set me up in 2026, I feel. And it's a pattern of behaviors that allows my mindset to change. And they're physical behaviors, so therefore fitness, workout, food, as well as mental. And a lot of it, I find if I can win the mental game, I can win the physical and the other type of games in what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think there's a kind of secret in there about the resilience you already have, right? Because you're saying, I'm going to go back to what's worked, and I know I can do this. I know I can go from a place of feeling down and low to a place of feeling positive and high again, because I've done this before in my life. And that's sometimes when I think of the resilience that I've had to build in my life, I know I can do hard things because I've done them before. And that framing for yourself of some of the things that you've gone through as not only a terrible thing or the worst thing that's happened, but then being able to also frame them as, but I got through that. So then the next time I come across a challenge, there will be a belief in myself that I can get up again. And you introduced me to a book by Angela Duckworth called Grit. It was really a popular, I think it was a bestseller about 10 years ago. And it was about resilience. How can we teach resilience for our children? And this is long before we had children together. And it was thinking about, how do you so often as a parent, your instinct is to protect and to prevent harm or to prevent pain. But the kind of thesis of that book is that doesn't help your child have resilience. And if they get knocked down, your goal is to teach them grit so that they can get back up again and try again and try again. And the people that are successful, they look at some of the sort of traits of people and the outcomes. It's the people who will get up again. They'll get up one more time than someone else to try again. So I think, when you said you were going to go back to the books that have worked for you or that have really spoken to you in different parts of your life, I really loved it because you're always looking for the new thing, but I love, I'm a rereader, I'm a comfort rewatcher. I think it's and I remember feeling, we were talking about that with little kids as well, because they quite often want the same song or the same show or the same movie over and over again. And I spoke with a friend of mine who's studying to be a psychologist, and she was like, it's the psychological support to be able to find comfort in the familiar. So I think it's a good thing to turn to at this time, which, might not have been your natural thing to do as you look for something new, a new answer. Rolling out Microsoft 365 Copilot licenses isn't enough. You need an adoption plan to get people using it well. In our new book, published by Microsoft, we offer a practical guide to successful Copilot adoption. Many leaders believe in the why of Copilot and AI, but they need guidance on how, from practical frameworks to enabling champions and measuring impact. Get your copy of Microsoft 365 Copilot Adoption now from Amazon, or find a link in the show notes.
Yeah, totally. And it is part of that muscle memory, right? And I like what you said there about going back and what worked in the past. And that is, as part of that resilience, has been able to reflect and going, the current situation I'm in, it's a time, but you can remember past events and experiences, and that made you who you are, and being able to bounce back into that and not even bounce back is probably, it takes work. It's not like it's just a stretched rubber band that bounces back reflexively. Is that it is that muscle memory. It's developing what works well for you, and it's unique to every person. And you've got to be able to identify what is it for you, I feel, and go on a journey of exploration if you're not sure what that is, what it is for you. But you need to find out what it is for you. So it's kind of like centering yourself to be able to move forward with that. And that takes us into well-being. So burnout, anxiety, and depression are all things that we know are common in life. In fact, there's a bunch of research that's recently come out by Forbes and other publications that people are feeling a high degree of anxiety in the workplace, that there is a sense of burnout, and well-being is probably not on the forefront. And it was in October last year that Dario Amodei, who's the CEO of Anthropic, he put out an essay called Machines of Love and Grace. And it's worth taking a look at because in it, he highlights how AI is going to help us in various sections of our life. And the two first sections were around your health and around your mind. In other words, your mental health, right? And in those two areas, he has a lens on how AI could potentially help us in those two areas. So mental health and health. And then he goes on to economics, so finances and peace. In other words, having peace in our lives and meaning. And I think meaning is one of those things that's going to change a lot in the next 3 years, maybe shorter, who knows. And when I say meaning is what is the meaning of our existence? And a lot of us find meaning in the work we do. I remember reading a book years ago by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. And if you check that book out, it's one of the most successful reviewed books of all time. It talks about a doctor who was in the concentration camps as part of Nazi Germany, and how he looked at people that survived and their mindsets and their states and people that didn't. And what was the differences and how post-war the effect it had on him and the importance of your ability to find meaning in life. But going back to Dario Amodei, what I like here and one of my challenges for myself is I want to build myself an agent for each of these areas of my personal life. So a health agent, a mental health agent, a financial agent, so to monitor my, personal finances, not monitor, but actually, ratchet it up so I can get better in these areas, as well as meaning changes. And I think it will change in time. And we do a lot around the way we've set up our property and lifestyle, and that we get a lot of meaning out of that. That meaning is not just our work. But I think AI can be a massive enabler of these areas. Also, there's caution to be had because just last week was with a friend who's a psychologist in Auckland, and we were talking about how AI therapists and the kind of wild west of what's going on in that space at the moment, and the need for caution. And to her, I was saying, listen, I do expect that AI-assisted therapy will be a massive part of what we go through in the future. Just like I said in healthcare, I think a doctor with an AI support person working alongside that doctor is going to be able to diagnose situations a lot better than a doctor that doesn't have the support of AI. And so I just think times are going to change in this space.
Yeah. And all of it, I think in so much of the commentary, it's like, just move all towards AI. But I want to encourage people that are getting help from AI they're also still getting help from trusted people, right? Like, it's so often if you just read the case study or the highlights or the hype cycle, it's like AI will do this for us. And I'm like, yeah, it can help us do it better just in the scenario you described. It should be more maybe articulate or informed when we're speaking with someone who has done the hard yards. It's kind of like it's both and. And the other big one that came up for me in talking about well-being of our teenagers, particularly with some people last week at an event I was at in Auckland, was, are you talking with your teenagers? Have you found a way to explicitly talk about what you are and aren't doing with AI? It's kind of not going to work just to be like, oh, what are you doing? Show me, as like an authoritarian thing. But if you're demonstrating and kind of leading by example to go, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is the kinds of things I'm asking, and create a dialogue with them, because I can guarantee you that they are using AI in a way that you would never predict. So if you're not explicitly having these conversations, how can you guide them around the ever shifting line between what you would share and what you wouldn't share, what's safe to ask? These heartbreaking, horrible cases of AI companions that have, it seems in hindsight, spurred a teenager on to take their life, So the explicitness, both from that point of view, but also just from how are they learning? Are they using AI in their assignments just to get it done? Are they missing an important step that only later on you'll sort of say, I thought you learned that at school, but they never did, because this was coming out and being available to them much faster than the curriculum was able to be updated? That's my kind of big thing. It's like we just have to talk more with each other and be listening for what you might hear that you might be able to start a conversation about. So tell me a little bit about your approach, to the learning element of it. Like what role does learning play in resilience and well-being for you?
So I think more than ever, the rate of change is only accelerating. We've just come off last week Ignite happening in the Microsoft space, where there was just a deluge of new content and new tools to learn and new ways that AI are doing different things. And I think even that can become overwhelming. And there's this need to move from learning, I feel, being an event to becoming a habit. In other words, it's something we build into our lives. And just like you would create a habit if you want to get fit at a gym and work out, it's the consistency that's important. It's not going and doing one massive set and going, bang, there you go, I'm done for the month. It's the consistency. And yet so much of our training is done as this one massive rep, and then you're done, and you're expected to have learned what you needed to learn to carry on. I think that there's a couple of things. One, each of us need to work out, how do you learn? So rather than just having learning put on you by external people, sources, etc., how do you learn? What is the best model for you to learn? And then you start building a learning repetition and habit into your life. For me, I learn I'm a self-learner. In other words, I like to direct my learning. I like to select what the topics I'm going to focus on. I like to do my research. I like to be quite diverse in where I bring that material in from. Not from one particular vendor, not from one particular supplier or one particular voice or person. I like it to be diverse, and then I develop my skill around a particular topic. Recently I wanted to go deep on a thing called Varroa. Varroa is a mite that affects bees. So, I've got a new book on handling Varroa mites in New Zealand. I understand the topic thoroughly, and then I feel like I'm set up and equipped to work in that subject area for what we're doing on our property. But everything in life, I think that when it comes to becoming a lifelong learner, it needs to be a habit, right? And, my most highly recommended book on, if you want to build habits, is Atomic Habits. Go check that book out. Incredible book. But just if you looked at how could I build the habit of lifelong learning, whether it's 5 hours a week, which there's so much written about this 5-hour model of 5 hours of learning a week consistently over time, how it sets your mindset up to absorb and learn new, and then articulate it out. How does it apply? How can I use it? How can I advance in my skill sets by applying it?
Yeah, so how I like to learn is, for me, it's very connected to the purpose. So like if I know why I'm learning something, I can be quite adaptable in the way that I learn it, whether that's reading or watching. I'm probably more inclined to read. But the big thing for me is to be able to talk it through with someone afterwards, because it's only then that I can kind of chart the pathways in my mind and make connections with other ideas. One of the big areas of learning for me over the last couple of years has been governance, as I've stepped into board roles and have been able to, start to learn about what is the role of strategy in an organization. And I love it. To me, I describe it as a bit of a puzzle. So I get to put my pieces together from what I learn by doing, so learn by fulfilling roles on a board, what I learned from talking with mentors, so taking a scenario, a case study, and being able to talk it through with someone who has that governance experience. And then, of course, there's, podcasts and courses and books as well. But I think the most important ingredient for the way that I learn and retain information is to be able to talk it through. So maybe that's why I'm the one that keeps coming back to, like, let's talk about it. Not everyone is going to learn in the same way, but for me, that's a really key step.
Just to wrap on this, I think we need to focus on uniquely human skills like creativity, emotional intelligence, critical thinking, and ethical reasoning. Those are some notes that I just wrote before doing this. And the other one is the byproduct of continual learning is self-confidence, right? It gives you confidence. It gives you self-efficiency, right? As that it just changes how you engage in whatever you're working on. So it increases your well-being. It promotes your overall life satisfaction. The more you learn, particularly learning an application, and you'll be an interesting person to hang around.
So that's interesting you said that, because when you were talking earlier, it reminded me about a story. I'm pretty sure it's from Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference, which is, the one we recommend the most on negotiation. And he talks about being having an experience on a psychological help hotline. So he's, takes the call, and essentially, I think it was a suicide hotline. And so he talks someone down, and he thinks he's like just nailed it. He's come off this call and he is like, I guess, had what he would describe as a successful outcome. And he kind of swaggers in to the team leader's office waiting for his praise that should be due, first time taking the call, and he's just nailed it. And the guy absolutely reams him, says, "You have absolutely failed. You did that horribly." And the main kind of takeaway was, you gave that person on the call, you gave them all the answers. But what you needed to do was help them arrive at the answers themselves, so that the next time they're in that place, they can look within and draw on their resilience to, survive the next crisis. And it was such a different reframe from this whole idea of, I'm going to give them the answers and then that will help them and I will be amazing, to my only role here is to help someone else know that they can do it themselves. Thank you so much for joining us. If you've been listening to this podcast, there's also a video version. You can watch it on YouTube or on Spotify. We love your feedback. We love your comments. It's so amazing to have gone on this journey with you. This is the 12th of our 12 skills that we've been talking about over the last couple of months. This, for us has been a piece of work that we've been working on for a while and will continue to work on. And what we would love to do in the next episode, which will be the last before we take what for us is a summer holiday in New Zealand, we're going to take a hiatus and then come back in February. Before we do that, we would love to answer any questions you have. So we're going to do an Ask Us Anything. You can send us questions in our WhatsApp group, which you can join in there's a link in the show notes. And we will next week, so 1 week from now, we'll be recording those answers, and love to sort of answer anything about the future skills that we've talked about in other episodes, or things you have that you've wondered about AI. We operate on a no dumb questions policy, so fire them away in that WhatsApp group. We're looking forward to that Ask Us Anything as a sign off, and thank you so much. These episodes live sort of in perpetuity on our site, which is microsoftinnovationpodcast.com. So head over there if there's any that you want to catch up on, or send to a friend if they've been helpful to you. And with that, have a wonderful week and get ready to ask us next week.